Oh, yeah, really.
Okay, welcome to our February 20th City Council meeting, Webster Groves, our regular meeting. We welcome comments from those in attendance and those on Zoom. We'd ask that you, if you're here and would like to make a public comment, fill out a comment card that's by the door. If you are on Zoom, we'll ask you to raise your hand and we will call on you at that time. Please know that you'll be limited to 3 minutes just so we can keep our meeting on schedule. All right, we're going to start as usual with the roll call.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Arnold.
Here.
Councilmember Bliss.
Here.
Councilmember Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Alexander. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd. Here.
All right, next on our agenda, we have some very special guests who work very hard on behalf of the city of Webster Groves from our Green Space Advisory Commission. Thank you for being here. And this is very strange because I don't have anything to say at this point, and it's your turn.
So thank you for having us on the agenda this evening. On behalf of our commission, I am thrilled to share some exciting news with you. Last month, our group received the Gold Leaf Award from the International Society of Arboriculture. The Webster Groves Greens Our City initiative has been officially recognized not only regionally, but internationally for our ongoing efforts to preserve and reforest the tree canopy within our community. The Gold Leaf Award is designed to recognize an outstanding individual, organization, or community landscape beautification project with an international award. Replanting programs like ours must have an impact on the community or region for several years. This would not be possible without the collaborative efforts between our commission, the Webster Groves Public Works Department, the Webster Groves Parks Department as well. But most importantly, we could not have done this without the residents. These homeowners answered the call to steward the newly planted trees, volunteering and dedicating time each week to provide much needed water to ensure future generations will benefit from this initiative for years to come. So many thanks to everyone who's involved. We could have not done it without you. It is truly an honor to be able to present an award of this caliber to you all this evening. Thank you and congratulations, Webster Groves.
Yeah, so we'll, in just a moment, I'm going to invite the members who are here to come and be in a picture with all of us, because this is something that we should certainly proclaim throughout the city. Before we do that, I didn't have anything written down to say, but you know, I always have something to say. And the first thing I will say is thanks to our staff who worked on this, both in the Parks Department and the Public Works Department. And to, as you mentioned, the residents who were a part of this, which they're fantastic. And I love the fact that there's an educational component. I would be very fearful that I would then kill the tree that had been planted in my yard. And so that's good that they all know what to do. But most importantly, thanks to you on the Green Space Advisory Commission, because this is something I remember you all thinking about and starting with an idea and figuring out a way to really have this take hold in the community. And it's been a joy to watch that happen. So while you gave us this award, handed it over to us, it is really your award, and it's an award that has been well earned by hours and hours of work. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's all have a picture here. Yeah, Scott, you have to take a picture too. Yes, every member of council. Okay, good. I was gonna say, somebody has to have. Well, no, you can't go to the back. There we go. There we go.
That'd be a good location for it, yeah. There is. We're starting it up right now. And we're looking forward to planting in October. So we're ready to kick off the project. Yep.
Whichever one's I can get. Well.
I haven't heard from him.
Yes. All right, I have no comment cards. Is there anyone online who would like to make a public comment? If yes, would you please use the raise your hand function?
No.
Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to move on. Does any member of the council have any new business or city manager, city attorney? Let's go to unfinished business. I am going to ask Councilmember Bliss if she would move to reopen the public hearing, please.
Yes, Mayor, I move to reopen the public hearing for bill number 9245.
Councilmember Bliss?
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin?
No.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander? Councilmember Richardson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd?
Yes.
Mayor Arnold?
Yes. And the only purpose of reopening the public hearing is to submit a letter that was given to us by Reverend Susan Candia, who is the Bishop of the Central State Synod of the LCA. So I would ask that this would be admitted to the public record.
Mayor, I would ask that the letter dated February 16th, 2024, directed to you and to city council, written by the Reverend Susan Candia, be admitted to the record as one of the documents.
Thank you very much, and we'll close the public hearing. And Councilwoman Hickson Shepherd, could you call for the third reading, please?
Yes, I'd like to call for the third reading of bill number 9245.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I attended actually my uncle's funeral. We had a service and it was at, oh shoot, I wrote it down. I took a picture of it. St. Ferdinand's Church in Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
And outside in front of it is a plaque. And it says, these two old people thought enough of this place to try to preserve it so that it could be something for the others to enjoy in the future. And it just really reminded me of this issue with this church here. I mean, and then when you go in there, I mean, it's the church, it's the old building, and it has the school and whatever. And as we said numerous times during the discussion, you know, giving someone something historic status doesn't guarantee that it won't be demolished. But what it does do is perhaps give it time and exposure and an opportunity for somebody else to come in and recreate it using something in the value that it has there. But when I saw that, and it just immediately, they've turned it into a community space where people come together for different functions and what have you. And that really brought me to mind of this.
Is there other comments?
Yeah, pretty much the questions I asked last time this was an open session. One of the questions, what difference would this make if we did a recognition of this as being a historic landmark? And after reading the letter from the bishop, you know, they can sell it regardless if we make it a historic place or not. And by us changing the status of this is not going to change the value or the ability to sell. You know, now they can, somebody want to come forward and use this facility and keep the overall structure, you know, maybe there's might be tax advantage for them. But it seems like the organization, they want to be rid of it. I mean, they don't want to have anything to delay it. Although us voting to make it a historical site is going to delay it, they can sell it anytime they want. I just got the impression last time that some of the residents that was speaking in favor of it got us making this a historic site is going to stop the sale of it. And it's really not. The owners are going to do what they want to do with it. So
Emerson, if I could, how do we know it won't increase or decrease the cost of this property by making it historical?
I
I
just.
mean, the fair market will determine that, right?
Yeah, fair market, yeah.
So I mean, I think that it is an additional burden now, or it can be perceived as an additional burden for having this historical designation. Because doesn't this change the criteria by which our Historical Preservation Commission will look at demolition purposes?
But it doesn't stop anything. I mean, I sat on that for a year and they bring the information, you look at it. You cannot usurp someone's ownership and what they want to do with the property. If they want to tear it down, eventually, there's really not much we can do to keep them from tearing it down.
Yeah, and what I understand, due to the age of the facility, it's going to come in front of the commission anyway. To be,
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna add anything to the timeline. It's gonna come
Not
to
the
the
timeline,
commission
but the
anyway.
criteria.
No, I mean, not really.
I mean, how does
It'll-
it look to
the-
that
the
we have
cha-
nominated this thing as historical, designated it, and then we allow it to be torn down?
But those aren't the only two considerations. And like I mentioned last time when Emerson asked, like, what's the point? It's a way for us to indicate what we value as a society, as a community. We value that historic building. It's not going to stop anything. I mean, Mara went through the whole thing, several times, that it's going to take the same timeline. And the difference is it's a public hearing, which means that neighbors will be notified and it won't happen without people knowing that something's happening, but it's not going to hold it up.
So there is additional criteria.
No. Well,
You-
there's-
Well,
said
the
that,
public
right?
hearing
It's a
is an
public-
additional
okay.
criteria.
But there's not an additional criteria to the public hearing of when something can be torn down or not. There's not additional timeline because the public hearing happens at the same time as the non-public hearing would happen.
And I've tried to look at this from an unbiased view and think, what is the purpose of this? And to me, right now, the facts demonstrate that this is a backdoor attempt cloaked in the idea of history in order to preserve a building.
But it's,
it's not-
And to me, I think that's problematic because this council's job, the city government's job is not necessarily to preserve an individual building. It is literally to preserve history. And we're all acknowledging that this historical designation will not prevent this building from being demolished or standing. And so what's the purpose of this?
So if I might interject, I don't disagree with anything you've said except for one thing. To me, the purpose is a historic designation gives an opportunity for someone who might want to transform the property to leverage tax credits at the state level to do so. So that we are giving them an additional tool to try and preserve what is there. That doesn't mean anybody's going to use it, but at least provides that opportunity.
But there's no requirement that we do so in order that they get those tax credits.
Mara would have to weigh in on that, but I do think for a lot of them, you have to have some sort of historic designation.
You go to the federal government. Ours local government isn't going to do anything. Is it going to add a criteria for them to get these or add
Come on
a
up, Mara.
numeric
Yeah, Mara,
value?
would you come on up and you need to clarify for us what this does in terms of tax credits.
They still have to get the national designation in order to get the tax credits. But in most cases, doing the research for the local allows you to complete the final research to apply for the national.
Thank you.
To me, there's an option, like, we're making a choice either way. We're either choosing to name this as historically important to our community or choosing not to. And to me, that's the choice. It's not whether we're going to do it or we're just not going to do anything. We're choosing not to say this is important. And I think that's a missed opportunity personally, that if this building that is important to this community and has been historically important to the community, if we let this kind of pass by without saying this is historically important to us, I think we're missing our chance to do that, because after this, we won't get that opportunity. Like,
But I disagree with the fundamental premise of what you just said, that merely by us designating this as historical does not make it important. We know it's important.
But we're publicly declaring that so that we're saying it to others, this is important to my community. And I agree with the point that if it draws more attention to the property, if it helps to bring those who might be interested in any capacity of seeing the property, if it is demolished before it is demolished, like if there's anything along the way that brings value, there's no harm for us doing this. It's not, it doesn't create any additional work for our staff. It doesn't create additional hardship for the owners. It is just a service almost that we're saying this is a historically important building.
But we've already established that by nominating this or designating it historical will create an additional criteria, which is a public hearing, which is an additional burden on the homeowner to attempt to the property owner and an attempt to demolish the building.
It's not, because they're still gonna have to come before the Historical Preservation Commission anyway.
But now they have a public hearing.
Yeah, but it's the same timeline as it would have been before.
I'm not.
I
I'm not
don't think it
disagreeing
is
with the
quite the same timeline. It's just a little bit longer, but well, okay, then I'm good.
I just read Mara's lips.
Okay, I'm confusing it with what was when we made the changes when I was the HPC. Okay, I obviously believe you. So
No, I mean,
it is the same
I mean,
timeline. Yeah, no, I know. I get it.
I mean, I think that this building is important, and I think it's important for a lot of people within our community, both past and present, and probably future. But I think we, as a city, have to determine, well, what actually meets the criteria for us as a city to nominate and designate something as historical? Merely because they bring it to us does not mean that we have to do it as a
Didn't
city.
it,
But there
wasn't
was
it
al-
already vetted by
Yes.
the Historic
I'm not
Preservation
disagreeing.
Commission?
There's a
We have
full
the
list of
final say.
criteria though. Like
There's-
it's not
sure.
like this is like off the seat of our, pants that
And
we're
you
just
can name
deciding.
1,000 buildings in this community that probably meet similar criteria as
Okay.
this.
So
And
we're
so
taking a
what-
proactive step to declare that big picture, this structure is of value. Rather, we're not blanketing the whole city with historic buildings that cannot be touched, but we're saying right now, this building has historic value and is worth designating as a historic structure. As far as, I mean, the other thing is we're not disguising anything with history. History is what it is. So it's not cloaked in any sort of mystery of the value of this building is. It's all there on paper.
The
in the
avenue in
books.
which it got here is cloaked in history. The idea that this is only before us now because the current property owners are thinking about selling, and the people that find this building important are attempting to put up any perceived roadblocks in order to prevent the potential demolition. I mean, definitely seems from an unbiased eye that there's some nefarious reasons for this.
That's not an unbiased perspective. There's,
I disagree,
it's
but
about being
show-
concerned about the buildings in your.
But okay, well, then why don't we have buildings that are gonna continue to be owned by the same property owner that are brought to us? You know, like.
They
that seems-
are.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the way that these buildings come
Just
to us so
the
often.
timing is concerning to you.
I mean, the Marvin.
Sure
Court
it is.
one-
Can we go one at a time here, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
Karen, go ahead.
Well, Marvin Court, we just had, that continues to be owned by the same person and wanted to have the historical significance recognized, so.
And there's so you just pointed out a very significant difference of facts of how this got here versus that.
What she's saying is that we're not only seeing properties that are about to
Right.
change hands.
Right.
All right, fair.
So
But
this one is.
This one
Potentially,
is.
yeah, but it also means that if that's what brought the attention of the residents to it,
And we don't,
it's still the residents that brought it to us.
but would you agree with me that we don't know what the fair market is gonna do when we nominate this as an historic designation?
Sure.
You never know what the fair
Right.
market is gonna do on a property, whether it has this historic significance or not. The
Then-
market decides that.
Then why should the government put an additional potential, negative or positive, on this property that is about to be sold and the current property owners don't want it?
But we don't determine what the government's,
We are the government.
we don't, but you're talking about the national, what they have to do there, or even us with the local. That's just part, it's part of what we do in determining whether something gets recognized as historical or not. I mean, we have that tool in our box to look at things like this and to do it.
So, and let's also consider the context here. I would be more convinced of this argument about the property owners if the current property owners didn't have the property essentially by default.
Mhm.
They inherited the property from the congregation when the congregation dissolved. This is not the congregation selling the property. This is the regional governing body of the church. And so to me, that's a little bit different than somebody who has occupied the building is saying you're putting this historic designation on this while we are trying to run our church community here.
But you talk about context. I mean, this is a religious organization that continues to operate throughout the country.
Yeah.
And, they.
And in
from
our
a-
community. by
And
the
in
way.
our, but they have determined from a contextual standpoint that this building's not worth saving, that it's not part of their religious identity or their religious historical perspective. They'd
Well-
rather sell it.
Well, the letter they sent us, they mentioned that they're not in the habit of holding on to property they're not using. They get rid of it because they don't want to be a landlord or the ongoing maintenance. So, but my reason for making the comments is that I just don't want the citizens thinking that because it is, we will make it a historic site, that it's going to save this building from anything. It's not.
I agree.
Now, unless they come forward and find somebody that's going to develop that piece of property and maintain this structure on the outside. Otherwise, this is probably going to come down.
Procedurally, I just want to say that like, we have an ordinance that has the criteria in it for what, and one of those is that, HPC can bring things to the council. Council can bring their own things to council too, if they want to designate something. And this met multiple of those. And there's nothing in that ordinance that says that we have to consider fair market value and the effect on that. There's not, I mean, I know that that's something that we consider, but it would be nebulous. Like, we don't know that there's going to be a negative impact.
We don't,
There's
and I
no,
don't know if there's gonna be a positive either.
or
Neutral,
neutral.
exactly.
Right. So I think that, we have an ordinance that says that if a property comes forth and it meets these criteria, it could be designated as historic. And this one, in my opinion, clearly does meet multiple of those criteria. It's important to the community. I take the point, and, we even had a resident who's like, yeah, we didn't bring it up earlier, but I think things tend to come to a head when there's a threat perceived, right? And so I think, there has to be, if something's going to come up, it has to come up at some point in time, and that point in time happens to be now for this property.
But this congregation has been out of, quote unquote, out of existence for quite some time now. And this building has been in limbo for quite some
The
time.
people who brought in the residents are many of them are descendants of the people who
And I get
built
that,
it.
and I
So
think
they're
that
not
it's-
necessarily they weren't necessarily congregation members themselves, but see it as important to their heritage and our heritage. as
And I'm
well.
not disputing the importance that they place on it or the importance of it from potentially a community perspective. What I'm disputing is whether the government should designate it a historical landmark or give it the historical designation.
Then we should change our ordinance.
I was gonna say, so if you take that position, then you're saying that we shouldn't even have that in our ordinance, that we can even look at things that are brought to us to be considered for historical.
I'm confused how you got there.
Well, I'm confused how we shouldn't even have this in our ordinance for somebody to bring to us the
Oh,
consideration that a property might be given a historical designation.
Well, I apologize. I don't think anything I've said or I haven't intended to make it that I don't agree with the ordinance or that I don't agree with the concept of the ordinance. What I'm disagreeing with is that this building meets those criteria and also that the mechanism with which it got here is also just seems a little bit unhistorical. It doesn't seem like this was historical 6 weeks ago before this whole thing went down, but suddenly when there's about to be a sale of the property, it becomes historical. It just seems kind of contradictory to me.
All right. Is there anyone who has not had the opportunity to offer thoughts that want to continue? All right, I think we'll go ahead and call for the vote then, please. No, not yet? Third reading first. Thought we did that.
Nope.
Bill 9245, third reading. Actually, did we call for it, Katie?
Yes.
We did. Okay, sorry, missed it. An ordinance designating and establishing the structures and surrounding property located at 407 Fairview Avenue as city designated historic landmarks and matters related thereto.
Dare I say, is there further discussion? Have the vote, please.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Franklin,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
All right, Councilmember Alexander, could you call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9246, please?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to call for the first and second reading of Bill number 9246.
Second.
Bill 9246, first reading. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute on behalf of the city of Webster Groves a permanent sidewalk easement to the St. Louis County Department of Transportation and Public Works related to a portion of property located by 8180 Big Bend Boulevard associated with federal project number STP-5537, parent 624N parent.
All right. Do we, does anyone have any questions? I don't know that we have a presentation. This really is related to an ongoing project. So we'll go ahead with the second reading then.
Bill 9246, second reading. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute on behalf of the city of Webster Groves a permanent sidewalk easement to the St. Louis County Department of Transportation and Public Works related to a portion of property located by 8180 Big Bend Boulevard associated with federal project number STP-5537, parent 624N parent.
All right. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? No? All right, then Councilmember Franklin, could you call for its approval?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval and adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
All right, we have made no appointments to boards and commissions this evening, but we do need to have a closed session on a personnel matter.
We do?
Excuse me?
No, is it about me?
Did I miss something?
What have you done?
Missouri statute 610.021, open parens, 3, close parens.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hickson Shepherd,
Yes.
Mayor Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
All right. If you are not an elected member of the council, you may head on your way for the